I think that for so long, the images, the stories tell us that being Black, a woman, and producing children is something that is invaluable. There has always been something in me that has said, yo, that's a lie.
What's good? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, and this is Black and Published, bringing you the journeys of writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. Today's guest is Asantewaa Boykin, author of the poetry collection Love, Lyric, and Liberation, a collection that is rooted in her lived experiences of womanhood, motherhood, being Black, and loving her community the best way she knows how.
Pieces like around my experience in healthcare and dealing with police and policing, I would say is probably the scariest because it could possibly have like real life implications. Like I was at work yesterday and thinking about like, will there be repercussions? Will there be like retaliation? Will there be difficulties? And deciding to do it anyway because it had to be done.
As a registered nurse, Asantewaa is trained to use the analytical side of her brain to help her patients heal. But she says, at her core, there's always been an artist within. The reason she says writing her book finished what her grandmother started. Plus, how she came to accept the vulnerability she displayed on the page. And her questions about Christianity, even though she hasn't been able to shake the influence of her upbringing. That and more when Black and Published continues. My first question is, when did you know that you were a writer?
So I think there was a point where I have like a lot of old journals that I like keep. Some of them were like notes from nursing school or like organizing meetings. And there was this moment where I went through I was just flipping through them, and in between all the notes, in between all the class notes, there were poems just like sprinkled in there. And I kind of understood that this is something that stayed with me no matter like what space I was in, like the desire to write poems, the desire to write persona pieces or prose. But yeah, it was that moment I realized it was staying with me.
Okay, so you had that moment flipping through those old journals and notebooks from nursing school. So then how long ago was that? Was that just like a few years ago?
Oh no, some time ago. Maybe 8 years ago.
Okay. Because I was gonna say you are a full-time RN. So like yeah, you do the nursing thing for real. But 8 years ago you realized that, I do this other thing too. What made you want to do something with your writing?
Well, I've always wanted to do something with my writing, actually. Now, whether or not it was a possibility, I think is what that moment did with the notebooks. I started writing as a child, and there was I had a conversation with my grandma, and I talk about it in the book where she tells me that she wanted to be a writer. And it was in that moment that I was like, oh, wow, I make sense to myself now. Like, duh, of course, right? Like it's in my blood. But it was never a conversation that me and my grandmother had. And I was like, I'm going to write a book for you. I'm going to finish that goal. Right. And I did. And this is where we are. So it's always been on my list, but I didn't believe that I was capable until that moment.
So now that you knew that you were capable and you were going to do it, how did you come to decide that you would focus your work on mothering and love and freedom and all of those things?
It's the way that I show up in the world. Even, I joke about this, but when I was 14, 15, like I had a full-time job, 2 kids, it was like going to school, So like, the mothering part has always come natural to me. I had a wonderful mother. She was a human being who was like flawed, but did her absolute best. to raise me. And love is just, for me, like love is just all there is. I have a tattoo on my shoulder that says love is my religion. Because at the base of all of our practices, all of our, right, even our actions, even organizing work is like love for your people, right? Love for liberation. And for me, the same exists in the nursing space, right? The wanting to see folks and be a part of the transition, right? Of whatever that transition is, from sickness to wellness, or from living to crossing, to transition to the other side, like wanting to be a loving force in those spaces.
And you're in the Bay Area, correct?
I'm in Sacramento. It's
Okay.
the Bay Area's little cousin.
Well, no, I asked that because you have a section in the book which is on liberation. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Oakland is very well known for its activism and its history.
Mm-hmm.
And the poems in that section specifically are in that vein. So I wanted to know, how has your surroundings influenced your work?
So when I was I did live in Oakland for a decade or more. My family's actually from there.
Okay.
So I have like fond memories of visiting there as a child, and even then feeling like, wow, this place is like magical, you know? My grandmother did tell me stories about like them wearing white gloves and walking to Sears and Roebuck's downtown. And the building was still the same. It may have closed like 5 or 7 around years ago, but I remember my grandmother saying of them walking from West Oakland to the Sears downtown. And when I lived there, like the Sears was still open. It was very surreal. And places like the Continental Room and Esther's Orbit Room, like, so having all of that history, and then being a young adult and being in that space, and then specifically being drawn to that space because of that history and the history of resistance that existed there. I was new in my, not really new, but like unlearned, right, in my organizing work, but very fervent. And Oakland was the place I wanted to be, to learn and to develop.
And how did that find its way into your artistry as a poet?
I like to think of the way that I write is like a recording,
Mm.
right? Like I'm translating the things that I'm seeing, the things that I'm experiencing, how I perceive my brothers and sisters, right, or folks are experiencing this thing that we call life, right? Just being in existence. Um, and I attempt to translate the feelings, right? Like being at protest, grieving folks, right? And then the empowerment piece, I really have, is really grounded, right, in my organizing work. And the idea, the thought, the manifestation of liberation, or what it means to be liberated.
There's a calling to and also a calling forth in your work of speaking to the people who are here and those to come, as well as the ancestors who were. Um, and grounding your work in this tradition, and then being in an industry where you see life and death every day. How, I guess, do you process that to get it onto the page?
I think getting it onto the page is the process for
Hmm.
me. It's the place where I feel the safest, where I can just say things that perhaps I wouldn't say out loud. Um, a friend of mine was like reading the book and was like, "Oh, I just read For Athena," and I was like, "Oh wow, you're gonna know about that. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna know like how I
Mm-hmm.
felt like about that, and where like all these like some of the darkest places that I've been was around that experience." And it kind of hit me like, "Oh, I'm being vulnerable. This is like exposure a little bit, you know." Um, but also hoping that that story like helps somebody else heal, you know?
Yeah, I know a lot of your business.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, was that a revelation to you that, oh, people are really going to read this book and like know me, even though I've never told people these things out of my mouth, but now that they've read them, they have this intimacy and an intimate connection with you that maybe that you didn't intend?
I've had a little bit of it, like people like walking up to me and telling me like their like similar stories, right? Like in a way to like identify and I think it's wonderful, and it can be a little uncomfortable too. Um yeah, it's a unique experience to say the least.
We're going to get to more of that, but before we talk explicitly about the collection of poems and essays, I want to know, because of having this revelation that you're being vulnerable and it being a little jarring and uncomfortable, why did you want to publish it anyway? Because you absolutely could have kept it private, but you decided to put this out in the world. So what was that decision making process like?
Specifically around the loss of my daughter, I would say we don't have that conversation enough. When that happened, I had so many women tell me that they had had similar experiences, but it was after the fact, right? There was no conversation about it ahead of time. So that particular piece, I would say that was the particular piece I was like, yeah, okay, we can talk about this, right? Because I wanted to be intentional about that. Some of the other pieces, like around my experience in healthcare, and dealing with police and policing, I would say is probably the scariest because could possibly have like real life implications, like for my career, for like how like these officers are still roaming around my department. Like I was at work yesterday and thinking about like, will there be repercussions? Will there be like retaliation? Will there be difficulties? And deciding to do it anyway because it had to be done, right? Like these are conversations we have to have, or at least I believe we have to have. Yeah.
And so you published with Nomadic Press, right? And we had a previous Nomadic Press author on the show, Janae, from season 1. So what has that experience been like, working with Nomadic Press and getting your work together and pushing the collection and getting it out to the world?
It was wonderful. I previously had no understanding of like the literary world, how it works, like what's expected. All I knew was this like dope ass press was in Oakland and I'm gonna send them my book, right? And like, let's see what happens. But it took a while. I didn't know the amount of time that it took to go from what I thought I gave Nomadic Press was a finished product, right? But the like editing process and then picking art and getting the blurbs and like all these accessory pieces that went with the book, right? Like the learning piece and the introduction and oh wow, like I just it was a bit overwhelming, but they were super supportive. I was assigned to editor and she was just like super slow with me, and was like, think about it like this, or have you, and she really helped me see my collection through the eyes of the reader and just not as the person who wrote it. And really made me think through like, what is it that I'm trying to deliver to the reader? And it was great. I loved it.
You said it was overwhelming. So what about the process was overwhelming? Because I haven't heard a lot of people describe publishing as overwhelming. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it was a relief to find a publisher. Or it was it was a gift. It was a dream come true. All of these things. But I've never heard someone say, getting to the point of finding a publisher and working with them was overwhelming. So what was that? What about it was overwhelming?
The overwhelm existed in my own head, right? Like we all, right? So the way that and I feel okay to say this, I was talking to my therapist, right? And I'm like, I don't know why I can't turn off the critical thinking part. And she brought to my attention that like my job as a nurse is to study, see what's wrong, and then fix it, right? And I'm learning to turn that part of my brain off when I'm not doing that work. Right. So for me, it was the constant assessment, right? Through the process. Is this poem good? Is it good enough? Should I take it out? okay, wait, let me think, right? Like, what is the order? Who, right? So a lot of that was in my own head, and my editor did a great job at like centering me. Even JK, I'll be like, dude, just tell me if I'm bugging. Just tell me if I'm bugging. You know what I mean? About like all the little details. And he never did, and I appreciate that.
Okay. And so I know the collection's out. I've read it. We're here now. Do you have your book so that we can do a little reading and then get into these poems? Because I went through them and I starred all of my favorites, which was a lot.
Okay. Yes, I love that.
And all my favorite lines. So yeah, if you want to read 3 poems, maybe 1 from each section, and then we'll talk for real about this collection. Black and Published family, it's time for the reading. Asantewa's collection, Love, Lyric, and Liberation, includes reflections, epiphanies, and warnings for anyone at the intersections of Blackness, femininity, art, and resistance. From detailing her experiences with losing her daughter and suicidal ideation, to paying homage to her mother, grandmother, and ancestors all, the poems and essays provide readers a grounded sense of home, of love, and a mandate to carry on. Here's Asantewaa.
This piece is called That's Love. I love niggas. Like Southeast, like roll tacos with cheese, like the brown Padre hat with the orange SD, like Marcus Garvey, like runaways looking for North Stars or Black stars searching for self. I love niggas. Like triggers love fingers and nooses love necks. And my mama loved me and me, Athena. I love niggas enough to oppose an enemy with 100 guns against my one and still fight. Enough to live and heal despite the urge to trust salty seas instead of unknown shores. Enough to live Black, die Black, and shine golden like the tips of pyramids, diamond-studded grills, and sunsets off the coast of Ghana. I love niggas. Like Nehonda love niggas enough to take niggas to meet niggas who never knew chains, so they can unshackle their own and love this sun-kissed brilliance we call skin. I love niggas enough to feel the pain, to soak the lashes, suture the gunshot wounds, breathe life into stolen tombs in the dark mental abysses that cry for freedom, with the faith it takes to wait for Jesus when we know that nigga's not coming. And the gumption to run when the time comes. I love niggas enough to leave some of y'all behind and still ask the ancestors to watch over you until we meet again on this plane or the next. My nigga, I love you. This piece is just so appropriate. Kendrick Lamar dropped that phenomenal album shortly after the book was released, and I have this piece called The Metaphysical Makeup of Kendrick Lamar. Let us talk about the metaphysical makeup of Kendrick Lamar and whether or not Tupac was resurrected in his lyrics. Let us talk about whether or not the Koch brothers are sitting in a pyramid-shaped temple, openly discussing the destruction of the Black man, because for centuries now, they have been white sheep. Now that's deep. Why is it that every carcinogenic substance known to man is absolutely legal, while Phoenix tears, ayahuasca, and LSD are not? And really, was everyone partying December 31st, 1999, or were they drowning their sorrows in liquor while secretly hoping to die? And do doves cry? I mean, really cry. If not, then can they actually be a representation of love? Because that ish hurts, like a needle in the eye or like a camel through the eye of a needle. And is that a real place or a metaphor or both? Speaking of Jesus, is he Black? I mean, really Black? Is Jesus African? Does Jesus look like Kendrick Lamar? And not the cleaned up, clean cut, ready for the Grammys, Mr. Lamar, but that nappy headed nigga sitting on top of a 6'4", a half a mile from Lamert Park, right in the heart of Compton, Lamar. If you ask me, I think Jesus is a she. And so was his father, who I bet $1 million wasn't a virgin, but did have 2 things that white supremacy cannot concede to: pussy and melanin. This piece is from the last section, Liberation, and it's called Mandate. Cast votes, slit throats, grow food, grow. Consult our ancestors, teach the babies, run. for something, office, fences, gates, borders, something. Sing, goddammit, keep singing. Paint with spray cans, brushes, or apps, write poems, rhymes, think pieces, thought-provoking posts, all of it. Learn to shoot, get a gun, make bullets, teach your babies how and when to use them. There is nothing more dangerous in a fascist regime and an underarmed population. Think critically. Question, critique for clarity, not shame or superiority. Principle over popularity or peace. Listen to yourself. What's not being said. Body language told in cadence. Be patient. And if you can't, then don't. Just go. God damn it, just go and Godspeed. Remember, leave a path so others can follow. Heal us, them, and those to come. Pray if you must, just don't forget to get up. There will come a time when the best thing to do is nothing. So do nothing. Rest. Breathe deeply. Again, mourn. Take the time to grieve. Bury your loved ones, not the pain. Scream or don't. Just do it. Yes, and fuck. Make love to whomever you want to make love to. Fuck them like they have oxygen and you need it. Make magic, babies, or at the very least, an orgasm. Find it. That thing that time has no hold on. Resist any and everything in the way of our freedom as they are connected.
Thank you. You've mentioned it a bit in talking about mothering. You conjure these images of, as I said earlier, calling back to, and calling forth, and talking about the loss of your daughter preterm, and talking about the stories of your grandmother, and talking about the stories of your mother. Why was it essential for you to center the matrilineal line of not only your family, but of families and Black families specifically in this collection?
Well, one, I honor them so much. They sacrificed, right, their ambitions to be mothers. And sometimes, so both my mother and my grandmother have passed. They've transitioned. So in some ways, it's how I stay connected to them. And I'm Black, right? And I'm a woman and I'm a mother. And I don't know anything else to be. And I think that for so long, the images, the stories tell us that being Black, a woman, and producing children is something that is invaluable. And I think that, there has always been something in me that has said, yo, that's a lie. Like, that's a lie. Like, it's set in me like something that was not true. So perhaps the way that I've focused this, especially this particular collection, is really me unpacking, right? Me reclaiming, right? Going through my own like process of healing. And I'm still doing a lot of that work. And maybe even not healing, but just self-discovery, right? Like, what does it mean to be Black in this skin and in this iteration of reality? What things am I teaching my child?
You have a lot of references to Christianity. Even in the pieces that you mentioned Jesus a couple of times. But then also you have poems called the Psalms of Brujas. So what is the role of religion or spirituality in your craft? Because as often as there are Christian references, there are also ATR references, or African traditional religions, for those who aren't aware.
So my grandmother, Bertha, was Methodist. My grandmother, Gladys, was like Baptist, like Southside Chicago Baptist. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there were these moments like with Christianity that were like super traumatizing. I remember this man in a van, which was hella suspect, right, would come and like hold Sunday school in the back of his van, right? And like, it was cool for us to just go have right? Like, some decisions. But I mean, he was fine. He was fine. You know, there was nothing nothing weird to my recollection, except for the trauma that took place in that space where it was like we were being explained to that if we're not good people, that we would burn eternally, except for, right, like this Jesus person, right, who came to like ratify, right, our sins, but there was still this potential of burning eternally if I sinned. Like it just didn't make sense in my head. And I think as a child, I had rationalized it like there's nothing I can do. Like I'll never live up to that expectation. So hell was just like an inevitability in my head. And this was me 8 or 9 years old, like a child, you know. And then as I kind of grew up in the church, like with my grandma, especially over the summers, I saw a lot of holes, right? In the stories that were being told to me, in the same way that there was a lot of holes in the narrative that being Black and female bodied was like invaluable, right? So I paralleled the two of like this spiritual tradition like Christianity that just didn't quite sit well, right? And then also this lie, right, that my Blackness and my femininity were invaluable. And then understand, not really, I wouldn't call myself like any title, right, when it comes to African traditional spirituality, but I think what it echoes back to me is value, right? Value of my femininity, of my like womanhood, of being a mother. It gives me a reflection of myself that is not trenched in wrongness, right? Even we think about like advertisements, like the goal is to tell you that there's something wrong and then sell you something to fix it, right? But they first have to convince you that something is wrong, and that is the way Christianity is kind of set on me. But I cannot, in fact, deny that it is part of who I am.
I get that. There is a lot of reference to safety with you being a nurse and you talking about, wanting to fix things and make things better and help people heal. You are also very, very aware of sometimes all your best efforts are for naught. You have a line in the essay, Police in Healthcare. What happens when their fear of law enforcement feels more overwhelming than their injuries? And then another line in that piece is, when we can agree that our patients should not be afraid to walk through our doors, but be it walking through the doors of a hospital or walking through the streets of a neighborhood or a city, safety is always a construct and not an actual reality. So when you talk about safety in your pieces and in your collection and to your people, where do you think they can be the safest?
I don't know. I don't know where the safest places for Black bodies. I'm coming to the conclusion that it is definitely not in these here United States of America. It's becoming increasingly complicated. Our population is like, right, like very, very small. Like when we think about the amount of Black folks across the globe, right, our population here in the US is not comparable. But this is where we are, right? I want to say that Black folks are safest like in their homes, but we know that that's not true. So yeah, I don't know if there is. And I wonder if other folks have that sense of safety, right? Like they feel fine, right? Like, and especially with all of the like mass violence, right? Incidences. I often wonder, like, especially like some of my colleagues, like, oh, so now do you understand what that feels like? To like feel like maybe I can't go to like the movies because it could be unsafe. I crave that space though. I crave to experience that space. I've traveled abroad, and even there were times where I was in a population of seas and seas of Black faces, right? And was still American as fuck,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we go abroad, we recognize how American we really are.
Uh-huh.
What do you want readers to take from your collection?
I hope somebody sees themselves
Hmm.
in these words. I think as a young person, you had to be intentional, right, to seek out the stories and the images that were a reflection of yourself. So I hope that some young woman or young man or neither, right, sees themselves in the words, that they have that moment that I had with my granny where like, oh gosh, I make sense to myself now. Like, duh, I'm not, I think that way. I understand this thing this way. Um, that same piece of like vulnerableness,
Mm-hmm.
I hope it gives someone else the courage to be vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
in whatever moment they need it.
Yeah, because you talk about, in addition to the loss of your daughter, suicidal ideation, depression and anxiety, in addition to the violence heaped upon Black bodies. Why did you want to cover so much ground?
These are just my experiences, man. Like this, like that moment with the with Eminem and the Mad Dog 2020 was real. That's not something I made up for a poem's sake, Um, but getting it out and putting it down helped me heal from that. Like help me um accept that happened. And
So then is writing your way to keep surviving?
absolutely, it's how I understand the world around me. It's how I take the experiences, sometimes the trauma, sometimes the love, and make it make sense in my head. It's how I trust it.
Mm. So do you trust yourself?
Not always.
Mm.
Not always. Not always. I'm learning to have that intuition and go with the intuition. My usual reaction is that nah, I couldn't be, and I recently wrote an essay about that, right? About the second guessing that takes place. And part of that is safety, right? That second thought, right, keeps us safe. So it's a journey. It's a journey.
What things don't you second guess?
These poems. For real. It's one thing that like, and maybe it's one of the things I'm absolutely certain of.
Mm.
I'm certain that I will always write. If no one's reading it, I'm gonna write. If I don't publish another book, I'm gonna write. Like I trust that.
And I'm going to let that stand. I want to move on to a speed round and a little game before I let you go for the morning.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite book?
Taste the Power.
Who is your favorite author?
It's a toss. I mean, bell hooks, right? No, Octavia. It's
Octavia
a
Butler.
runoff.
Between Bell Hooks and Octavia Butler?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a run. Who is your favorite poet?
There's something about Sunny. She commands a room, boy. You like, it's damn near spiritual. It is, in fact.
And then, because you had your Kendrick Lamar piece, who is your favorite rapper? Okay, top five.
Oh, okay. So number 5 is a category and not a person. There's something about Muslim men who are MCs, specifically the ones on the West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
An example?
Locksmith, Chase Infinite. Those two, for example, are magnificent. There's something about their relationship to their spiritual work, and then are their spiritual practices, and then the way that it translates into the art of emceeing, that is like a distinct feeling that I specifically get from it. So I would put them as my number 5.
Okay.
I'm from San Diego, so like number 4 would have to be like Mitchie Slick, just because he's the OG. Sugar Free, and I know that that's probably not popular, but his the way that he uses words is just magnificent, even if it is for the evils of pimping. Number 2, I gotta say, Big, he's a phenomenal storyteller. Like the way, like I hope that I could just be as well as creating, like taking you to that place, right? Like truly taking you to a place where you can see. And then my favorite, absolute favorite MC, I would say right now, Toby has my ear. I feel like when I go to turn, if I want to like get in a mood, right now it's just Toby. I'm not gonna try to pronounce Nquigwe. Currently, just the whole package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have poems that read like raps. So I'm going to ask you this question, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit. What is the difference between poetry, spoken word, and rap?
None.
Well, there it is.
Absolutely none. Now there's right, we know that things are like formatted differently. There's hooks, there's like poetry forms, there's the free verse of spoken word, but it is all the same. It is oral tradition, and Black people, even despite being colonized and oppressed, have like still used the art of oral tradition, one, to liberate ourselves, two, to like pass on history, three, like for entertainment, for spiritual practices, even like the way Christians listen to preachers. Like it is oral tradition. I don't think there's any difference between a poet and a preacher, to be honest. But yeah, none.
Okay. If money were no option, where would you go? What would you do? And where would you live?
So I would live somewhere near the water. Period. Not an island, but a coast. I would paint and write poems. Yeah, I would paint and write and probably tinker a little bit, just play with different mediums, right? Like just tinker. Yeah.
So then you mentioned painting, and you have this beautiful image behind you, which is also the cover of your book. So would you say that visual art is your hidden talent, or is it something else?
I wouldn't call it hidden. I think that they come, like the poems and the art like comes from the same place, right? Or like the same energy. What I'm currently working on is like, how do I marry these two things in a way that serves them both, right? Like so that the poetry doesn't outpower the art, and vice versa. So and I think that's where I'm getting the most of my enjoyment between the two, is figuring out how to help them exist in the same space.
All right, so my game is called Rewriting the Classics. Name one book that you wish you would have written.
The Pattern Maker.
What's one book where you want to change the ending, and how would you do it?
I almost want. I mean, especially like when we're talking about like novels, right? I think as we have this obsession with happy endings. So I'm almost like really happy when things end poorly.
Okay. But then name one book that you think is overrated and why.
I kept hearing in my young organizing days, you got to read Solo Nice. You got to read Solo Nice. And I read that book and I was like, why am I reading this?
What's it called? Solo
on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. There's no like revolutionary theory that I'm gathering from this, except that misogyny is a problem. So yeah.
Wow.
Like that's what I gathered from Soul on Ice. We got to address this misogyny. Like that was just it.
I'm done. All right. Final question. When you are dead and gone and among the ancestors, what would you like someone to write about the legacy of words and work that you left behind?
I've never thought about that. I would want them to say that what I did was from a place of love, like no matter what it was. I would want them to say that I did the work. I want them to see that I just didn't talk about the thing, that that I actually went about doing the thing, whether that be like self-discovery or like healing or like liberation work, that I actually did it, and that work is conveyed in my art.
Thank you, Asantewaa.
Thank you.
Big thank you to Asantewaa Boykin for being here today on Black and Published. Make sure you check out Asantewaa's debut poetry collection, Love, Lyric, and Liberation, out now from Nomadic Press. And if you're not following Asantewaa, check her out on the socials. She's at Asantewaa RN on Twitter and Instagram. And Asantewaa is spelled ASANTEWAA, and then the letter R and the letter N. That's our show for the week. If you like this episode and want more Black and Published, head to our Instagram page. It's at Black and Published, and that's BLK and Published. There, I've posted a bonus clip from my interview with Asantewaa about how she decided to become a nurse in the first place. Make sure you check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll holler at y'all next week when our guest will be Carlos Allende, author of the novel Coffee, Shopping, Murder, Love. Until then, peace.